welcome to your deep dive.
Oh, yeah.
You guys sent us a ton of stuff about Watergate this time.
A lot of really juicy stuff.
Most of it focused on the Nixon administration.
Yeah.
And how they weren't exactly following the rules.
Right.
So get ready, because we're going to uncover a whole world of political schemes.
Oh, yeah.
Secret operations.
And so many secrets.
And some shocking betrayals that still matter today.
Some of this stuff is straight out of a movie.
Seriously.
It really is. What I find fascinating is just how much of this whole Watergate thing ties back to Nixon himself.
Absolutely.
Like his personality.
Yeah.
His paranoia.
Yes.
It wasn't just, a little quirk or something.
Right.
It was a driving force.
Like a fuel.
Yeah, like a fuel for so much of what went down.
I've always seen it as this kind of feedback loop.
Oh, interesting.
The more paranoid he got, the more extreme his actions became.
Yeah.
Which just gave him even more reason to be paranoid.
Exactly. And you see this early on. Okay.
Our sources point to this really bizarre night in May 1970.
Okay.
Just picture this.
Okay.
Vietnam War protests are raging.
Lots of tension.
Oh, yeah, tensions are super high. And in the middle of all this, Nixon decides to make this impromptu late-night visit to student protesters at the Lincoln Memorial.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard about this.
Have you?
It's like 3:0 a.m., right?
Yeah, something like that.
And Nixon is just rambling about all kinds of things, like surfing in California one minute and then asking the students if they surf the next.
Right.
It's just...
So strange.
Yeah, it's so strange.
And when you read how his own aides describe him, it's even weirder.
Really?
Like they say he was rambling, almost incoherent.
Wow.
Like he was barely tethered to reality.
So you're saying this late-night ramble is actually a window into the mindset that would lead to Watergate?
I think so. It's like a sign of things to come.
Okay.
This deep suspicion of anyone who disagreed with him.
Right. This need to control the narrative.
To control everything.
Yeah, to control everything. It's all right there. And this paranoia, I think, really sets the stage for the creation of what we call the White House plumbers.
The plumbers.
Yeah.
Now, this is where things get seriously cloak and dagger.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about Nixon's personal team of fixers.
Right.
Operating outside the law.
Totally outside the law.
Hush money, deniable assets, the whole 9 yards.
For works. And the recruitment of E. Howard Hunt is a perfect example of this.
Okay.
One of Nixon's top guys, John Ehrlichman, flies to New York for a secret meeting with Hunt at LaGuardia Airport.
Wow.
It was a completely clandestine operation designed to leave no trace.
It's like something out of a spy movie.
Totally. And guess what Hunt's first target was? Ted Kennedy.
Oh, wow.
And the Chappaquiddick incident.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, talk about going to extremes to discredit your opponents. Yeah. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And their tactics, they just escalated quickly. Especially after Daniel Ellsberg leaked the Pentagon Papers.
Okay, yeah.
That top secret study exposing the truth about U.S. involvement in Vietnam.
Right.
Nixon became absolutely obsessed with punishing Ellsberg.
Now, the Pentagon Papers themselves, they were embarrassing, of course.
Yeah.
But they revealed secrets from previous administrations.
Right.
Not Nixon's, right.
Exactly. But Nixon's paranoia,
oh, I bet.
It just went into overdrive.
Yeah.
He felt under attack
and
saw enemies everywhere. And that's when the plumbers really got to work.
Okay.
They staged a break-in at Ellsberg's psychiatrist's office, hoping to find something to discredit him.
Hold on. A break-in at a psychiatrist's office? That seems a little extreme.
Well, they were desperate.
Yes.
They wanted anything they could use against him.
Anything at all.
They were desperate to silence him, to paint him as unstable, unreliable.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
So did they actually get anything useful from this break-in?
Not really. It was a total fiasco.
Really?
Almost comical when you read about it.
Oh, come on.
They had these disguises from the CIA. Wigs, fake glasses.
Wow.
Even a device to change your walk.
Seriously?
Seriously. But they completely botched the entry, ransacked the wrong office.
Oh, no.
And ended up empty-handed.
That's incredible. It's almost amateurish for a team supposedly made up of seasoned operatives.
Right.
Yeah.
It shows how Nixon's paranoia was driving them to make these reckless decisions. And it didn't stop there.
Really?
Oh, no. The sources detail another proposed operation, even more audacious, a plan to burglarize the Brookings Institution.
The Brookings Institution?
Yeah.
That well-respected think tank in Washington?
That's one.
What were they after there?
They thought Ellsberg might have stashed more secret documents there.
Okay.
And Nixon himself ordered this operation.
Wow.
He told his aides to do whatever is necessary to get those documents.
That's chilling.
It's chilling stuff. It's a clear sign of how far he was willing to go to silence his critics and control the flow of information.
It's scary how casually he just issued these orders, like completely disregarding the law.
Totally. But thankfully, this particular break-in never happened.
Okay.
But then 1972 rolled around.
Election year.
And Nixon's win-at-all-costs mentality,
Right.
it really took hold.
So the election becomes a turning point.
It does.
This is where Watergate really starts to take shape.
Exactly. They set up this whole special political intelligence unit
Right?
to dig up dirt on the Democrats.
Okay.
But their methods quickly spiraled out of control. It was no longer just about gathering intel.
Right.
It was about sabotage, intimidation. It was about winning at all costs.
And then there's G. Gordon Liddy,
Oh, Liddy.
one of the plumbers.
Yeah.
Our sources describe him almost assassinating journalist Jack Anderson.
It's almost funny in a dark, twisted kind of way. Liddy apparently misinterpreted a casual remark as an order to kill Anderson.
Oh, wow.
Luckily, someone talked him down.
Oh, good.
But it just shows how reckless and dangerous they'd become.
That's seriously messed up.
It really is.
And then, of course, we have the multiple attempts to get the Watergate bugging plan approved.
Right.
Liddy was pitching these wild schemes like kidnapping and using prostitutes to blackmail Democratic officials.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy.
It's wild. I mean, at one point, John Dean, the White House counsel, actually ran out of a meeting in disgust when Liddy started describing his plans.
He couldn't take it.
He couldn't take it. Even some of Nixon's most loyal aides were appalled by this stuff. They knew it was wrong, but the pressure to win it was immense.
Right.
Everyone was terrified of crossing Nixon.
So finally, in June of 1972, we get to the infamous Watergate break-in itself.
Yes.
And you know what's shocking?
Right.
The accounts of the break-in, they paint this picture of utter incompetence.
Seriously?
It wasn't a slick, professional operation.
No way.
It was a comedy of errors.
You're kidding.
More like the Three Stooges trying to be spies than Ocean's 11.
Exactly. Bungled entry attempts, frantic walkie-talkie chatter, a lookout posted across the street.
Oh, come on.
It's mind-boggling that these were the guys tasked with infiltrating the DNC headquarters.
Okay, but how did they actually get caught?
Okay, so late at night, the team is fumbling around trying to get into these offices.
Okay.
A security guard notices something's off and calls the police.
Smart.
Yeah. Suddenly, there are plainclothes officers swarming the place.
Oh, no.
And these burglars are caught red-handed, hiding under desks.
Wait, so one phone call from a security guard brought the whole thing down?
It seems almost too easy, right?
Yeah.
But one of the burglars, James McCord,
Okay.
made this fateful decision.
Oh.
Even though he knew the police were there, he went back into the offices.
He went back in.
He went back in.
Why?
I don't know. A totally reckless move that sealed their fate.
Wow.
And that is where the cover-up begins.
This is where things really start to unravel.
Oh, yeah.
What happens immediately after the break-in?
It's pure chaos.
I bet.
Jeb Magruder, the deputy campaign director, he's frantically trying to reach Liddy and John Mitchell.
John Mitchell.
Yeah, the attorney general at the time.
Wow.
They're desperately trying to contain the situation.
To keep it quiet.
To keep it quiet, to keep it from reaching Nixon.
The attorney general's involved in a cover-up. That's insane.
It gets worse.
Oh, no.
Mitchell actually tries to get McCord released from jail.
Seriously.
Seriously. We're talking about the top law enforcement officer in the country obstructing justice to protect a criminal operation.
The level of corruption is unbelievable.
It's wild. But even at this early stage, there were signs that the cover-up was falling apart.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Hunt, in a moment of unbelievable carelessness,
What did you do?
left behind some key clues.
Such as?
His address book and an unmailed country club bill.
It's like you wanted to get caught.
It's those little details, the seemingly insignificant things that often trip people up.
Okay.
And then there's the story of Martha Mitchell.
Oh, John Mitchell's wife.
John Mitchell's wife.
Okay.
She knew about the break-in and was openly critical of the administration.
Oh.
So they tried to silence her.
Seriously.
By drugging her and holding her captive in a hotel room.
Wait, they drugged and kidnapped the Attorney General's wife.
Yeah.
This is getting seriously dark.
It shows how far they were willing to go to protect themselves. But it was a losing battle. The truth was slowly leaking out. The pressure was building.
So how does Nixon finally learn about the magnitude of the scandal?
It all comes to a head in this tense meeting where John Deneen tells Nixon that there's a cancer growing on the presidency. It's a stark admission that the situation is spiraling out of control.
And this is just the beginning. They've got this massive scandal on their hands.
Right. Yeah.
The cover-up is already crumbling, and things are about to get a whole lot worse.
You're telling me.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to save that for part 2 of this deep dive.
Stay tuned, folks, because this wild ride is just getting started.
Buckle up.
We'll be back to uncover even more shocking twists and turns of Watergate in part 2.
You won't believe it.
See you soon.
See ya.
Welcome back.
Oh, yeah.
Last time, we left off with the Watergate cover-up in full swing, but already showing some serious cracks. The sheer desperation of Nixon and his crew.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing.
It really is. It's like watching a slow-motion train wreck. You know it's going to be bad.
Right.
But you can't look away.
Yeah. So they've got this scandal exploding all around them.
Right.
And their attempts to contain it are just making things worse.
Way worse.
So they're scrambling to control the narrative.
Yeah.
The press is sniffing around. The walls are closing in. What's their next move?
Well, they basically go into full-on panic mode.
Okay.
We're talking shredded documents, burned files, even attempts to use the CIA to obstruct the FBI investigation.
Wait, they tried to bring the CIA into this mess.
They did.
How do they think that would work?
It was a wild gamble. They pressured Richard Helms, the CIA director, to intervene and shut down the FBI's investigation.
So how did they pressure him? Did they appeal to, like, his sense of patriotism or something?
Not exactly. They threatened to expose the CIA's involvement in the Bay of Pigs invasion if he didn't cooperate.
Whoa. Using a national security crisis to cover up their own dirty laundry.
It's crazy, right?
That's hardcore.
It shows just how desperate they were. They were willing to risk damaging national security to save their own skins.
So did Helms cave to the pressure?
He was in a really tough spot.
I bet.
He didn't want to expose the CIA's secrets. Right. But he also didn't want to be complicit in a cover-up. So in the end, he resisted their pressure.
Okay.
But the whole episode just added to this growing sense that the Nixon administration was out of control.
Like they were digging themselves deeper and deeper into a hole.
Exactly. And they weren't just pressuring the CIA.
No.
They also put immense pressure on John Mitchell to take the fall.
To take the fall.
To claim responsibility for the break-in and protect Nixon.
So they wanted the Attorney General, the nation's top law enforcement officer, to become the scapegoat.
Basically. It was a cynical ploy, but Mitchell's wife, Martha, wasn't having it.
Martha Mitchell. Right.
She refused to let her husband be sacrificed to save Nixon.
She really emerges as a heroic figure in all of this, doesn't she?
I think so. Standing up to power, refusing to be silenced.
Yeah.
Martha Mitchell's defiance was a huge problem for the Nixon administration. She was a loose cannon, and they couldn't control her.
So with the pressure mounting, the cover-up unraveling, what happens next?
Well, this is where things get really crazy.
Okay.
Remember those secret recordings Nixon was making?
The tapes?
The ones we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
Well, the existence of those tapes
Yeah.
is revealed to the public.
How did that bombshell drop?
During a Senate hearing, a White House aide named Alexander Butterfield just casually mentions that Nixon records all of his conversations in the Oval Office.
Just drops that little detail like it's no big deal.
I know, right?
I can't even imagine what that moment must have been like.
He was a total game changer. The implications were immediately clear.
Right.
Those tapes could contain the smoking gun, the evidence needed to prove Nixon's involvement in the cover-up.
So did they just hand over the tapes?
Of course not.
What happened?
Nixon refused to release them, claiming executive privilege.
Executive privilege? Yeah. What does that even mean?
Yeah. Basically, it's this idea that the president has the right to keep certain communications confidential to protect national security and to allow for candid advice from advisors.
So Nixon was hiding behind a legal technicality to protect himself.
That's how his opponents saw it.
Right.
They argued that executive privilege couldn't be used to shield criminal activity.
This sets up a huge legal battle, right?
It does. And it all culminates in what we call the Saturday Night Massacre.
The Saturday Night Massacre. Now, that's a name that sticks with you.
I know, right?
What exactly went down?
It was a constitutional crisis in action.
Okay.
Nixon orders Attorney General Elliot Richardson to fire Archibald Cox.
Archibald Cox.
The special prosecutor investigating Watergate.
Okay, yeah.
Cox had subpoenaed the tapes.
Right.
So what does Richardson do? He refuses.
He refuses.
Richardson was a man of principle,
Yeah.
and he resigned rather than carry out Nixon's order.
Wow.
Then, Nixon orders Deputy Attorney General William Ruppelshaus to fire Cox.
Okay.
And he also refuses and resigns.
Talk about standing up for what you believe in.
Right. So who finally fired Cox?
Yeah, who did?
It was Solicitor General Robert Bork,
Okay.
the third-ranking official at the Justice Department.
So he did it.
He did. He followed Nixon's order, but the public outrage was enormous.
Yeah, I can imagine. It looked like Nixon was trying to obstruct justice to cover up his crimes by any means necessary.
Exactly. The Saturday Night Massacre, it was a turning point.
Okay.
It made it clear that Nixon was willing to abuse his power to protect himself.
Right.
And it really galvanized the movement to impeach him.
So after all that drama, did they finally get their hands on the tapes?
Eventually, yes.
Okay.
But not without more twists and turns.
Of course not.
And when they did get the tapes, there was a new bombshell waiting for them.
Uh-oh.
One of the tapes, a crucial conversation between Nixon and Haldeman, had an 18-and-a-half-minute gap.
Wait, a gap?
Yeah.
What happened there? Did someone accidentally record over it?
Rosemary Woods.
Rosemary Woods.
Nixon's secretary claims she accidentally erased part of the tape while transcribing it.
Accidentally.
But her explanation was so outlandish that nobody believed her.
Like, she accidentally leaned on the erase button for 18 minutes.
It gets even weirder.
Yeah.
She tried to demonstrate how it could have happened, contorting herself into these awkward positions, stretching to reach the controls while answering the phone.
It became known as the Rosemary Woods stretch, right?
Exactly. It became a national joke, a symbol of the absurdity of the whole cover-up.
But it wasn't funny for Nixon.
No. This was a huge blow to his credibility.
For sure.
I mean, come on. 18 minutes.
Yeah.
And technical analysis later showed that the gap had been deliberately erased, probably multiple times.
It was just more evidence that Nixon and his team were trying to hide something.
Exactly. And with each new revelation, the pressure on Nixon intensified.
I bet.
His support was crumbling, even within his own party.
So we've got the tapes, we've got the Saturday Night Massacre, we've got the 18-minute gap.
Right.
What's the final nail in the coffin for Nixon? What finally brings him down?
Well, there are a few key events that really seal his fate.
Okay.
First, there's McCord's letter to Judge Sirico.
McCord? Okay.
Remember James McCord?
Yeah, the guy who went back into the offices after the police arrived?
That's the one.
Okay.
Well, he writes this letter to the judge presiding over the case, revealing that he was pressured to lie under oath and implicating others in the conspiracy.
So one of the burglars flips and starts talking.
Yeah.
That must have sent shockwaves through the White House.
Oh, absolutely. And then there's John Dean's explosive testimony before the Senate Watergate Committee.
Dean.
Yeah, Dean.
The White House counsel who had that dramatic exit from Liddy's bugging presentation.
The very same. He lays out the entire cover-up in detail, implicating top administration officials, including Mitchell and Haldeman.
Why? So Dean turns on Nixon and spills the beans.
He does. It was a devastating blow. Dean was the ultimate insider.
Right.
The one person who could connect all the dots.
Yeah.
And his testimony was corroborated by the tapes themselves.
But there were still those who defended Nixon.
Yeah.
Those who believed he was innocent. Or at least that he shouldn't be removed from office.
Absolutely. The Senate hearings, they were a fascinating spectacle.
Yes.
You had figures like Senator Howard Baker, who famously asked, what did the president know and when did he know it?
That's just a simple question, but it cuts to the heart of the matter, doesn't it?
It does. And then there was John Ehrlichman, another top Nixon aide, who seemed to have a very selective memory when it came to Watergate.
It was a desperate attempt to protect the president.
Right.
But the evidence was overwhelming.
It was. And then the smoking gun tape is revealed.
This is the one
where
Nixon orders Haldeman to use the CIA to obstruct the FBI investigation.
Yes. It's undeniable proof that Nixon was directly involved in the cover-up from the very beginning.
Wow.
It's the nail in the coffin.
So what happens next? Does Nixon resign immediately?
Not quite.
Okay.
There's a lot of political maneuvering,
right?
Failed attempts to negotiate a last-ditch meeting with congressional leaders.
Okay.
But the writing is on the wall.
The pressure must have been immense.
Oh, it was. The public had turned against him.
Right.
His own party was abandoning him.
Yeah.
And finally, on August 8, 1974, Richard Nixon announces his resignation,
wow.
becoming the first U.S. president to ever do so.
It's a stunning end to a tumultuous presidency.
It is.
A moment that would forever change American politics.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that no one, not even the president, is above the law.
So we've journeyed through this whole Watergate scandal.
A wild ride. Right.
Oh, yeah. Witnessed Nixon's downfall. And it's incredible how this one event, it still casts this long shadow on American politics today.
I mean, it's become the yardstick, right?
Yeah.
After judging presidential scandals.
Yeah.
A cautionary tale about what happens when power goes unchecked.
It's like Watergate is a part of our political DNA now.
Yeah.
Like any whiff of a cover-up or abuse of power, and boom, the comparisons start flying.
It's the ultimate shorthand for political wrongdoing. But it's worth asking, though.
Yeah.
Are all scandals really created equal?
That's a good question.
You know, Watergate unfolded in this very specific time and place.
Right. It wasn't just about the break-in or the tapes.
No.
It was happening against this backdrop of, like, Vietnam War protests, the civil rights movement.
Yeah.
A whole nation grappling with this, like, deep distrust in the government.
Yeah, Nixon's actions really tapped into those anxieties.
Yeah.
And the media landscape back then really amplified the impact, too.
Fewer news sources, I guess.
Yeah, fewer news sources.
People generally trusted what they read and heard.
I think so.
Not like today's 24/7 news cycle and social media frenzy.
Right.
Information had more weight back then.
Yeah, absolutely. So when those bombshell Watergate revelations hit, they really shook the foundations.
Which makes you wonder, is Watergate even more relevant today?
Interesting.
I mean, we're drowning in information now.
Yeah.
It's hard to separate truth from spin.
Right.
And political polarization is, like,
rampant.
It's everywhere. You've hit the nail on the head there. In a world of information overload, Watergate reminds us to be skeptical.
Yeah.
To question those in power.
Always.
Regardless of party.
No matter what. So how do we prevent another Watergate?
Right.
Like, what safeguards do we have in place today?
Well, we've got reforms like the Ethics in Government Act.
Okay.
And a strengthened Freedom of Information Act.
Okay.
All aimed at increasing transparency.
Transparency is good. Transparency is essential.
Right.
And a more independent judiciary, a system of checks and balances that's supposed to keep things from going off the rails.
Right, keep everyone in line.
Exactly. But I think the most powerful safeguard is an informed and active citizenry.
Okay.
It's on us, the people, to hold our leaders accountable.
So we can't just rely on laws or institutions.
No.
We have to be engaged, informed, and ready to speak up.
Don't just get riled up on social media.
Right.
Take it to the real world.
Make a difference.
Absolutely. Watergate showed us that silence can be deadly to democracy. It thrives on participation, even when it's messy and frustrating.
It usually is.
It usually is. So what can we do as individuals to make a real difference?
What can we do?
Start by getting educated on the issues that you care about.
Right.
Read diverse sources. Right. Don't just stick to your own echo chamber.
Get out there.
Have real conversations with people who see things differently.
Yeah. Challenge your own assumptions.
Exactly.
Be open to changing your mind.
Yeah. And most importantly, vote. Vote. Yeah. It's the foundation of our system.
The bedrock.
But don't stop there.
Go.
Volunteer. Contact your representatives.
Yeah.
Support organizations fighting for democratic values.
Find your passion. Use your voice.
Yes.
And commit to building a better system.
Yeah.
It's a big task.
It is.
But Watergate shows us what's at stake.
It's a living legacy reminding us that power corrupts and eternal vigilance is the price of liberty.
Powerful stuff. As we wrap up our Watergate deep dive, we're left with this question.
Yeah.
What will you do to protect and strengthen our democracy?
It's a question worth wrestling with. Hopefully this deep dive has given you the knowledge and the fire to take action, make a difference, and keep the spirit of Watergate alive.
Thanks for joining us on this journey.
It's been fun.
Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and never underestimate the power of your own voice.
Absolutely.